Good afternoon. I appreciate so many of you watching my debate comments before the debate that I thought I would come back and share with you some observations after the debate. I also want to put the current situation in context because I think a lot of people misunderstand how historic what we're living through is. First of all, about the debate itself. I thought this was a vital moment for Donald Trump. He had to do well enough to survive. He had to do better than he did in the first debate. He had to meet head on the issue of these stupid tapes in which he says really offensive things. And he had to do so in a way that showed that he had grown. Not that he could deny them, but that that's not the person he is today, and that he regrets it. I think he crossed that threshold, not brilliantly. He's I think, embarrassed and awkward about it. But then maybe he should be embarrassed and awkward about it. Nonetheless, I think clearly he had made the point. I also thought something I wouldn't have done and would frankly have advised against, but that I think worked, was bringing the four women who were in a sense witnesses to the Clintons on the same issue. In particular, the woman who, when she was 12 years old, was raped, and Hillary Clinton defended the person who supposedly raped her, and did so by tearing apart this 12-year-old. And I think that sort of sobered everybody up, and I think it rattled the Clinton camp to have those four women there. As I said, not something I would have done, but something which I think Trump's instinct is to be very real, very authentic, and very aggressive. And he felt that if they were going to smear him, that he was going to balance and not just fall back and be defensive. And I think that he did that. Let me also say that I think that when they got into substance, when they talked about policy issues, that it is very clear that on issue after issue after issue, Trump had the better of the argument. He was on offense. Hillary was on defense. And the result was, I think, that whether it was the 33,000 emails that she had deleted or her position on Syria, which, by the way, we now know she completely misstated. She was, in fact, Secretary of State when Barack Obama first proposed a red line in Syria, although she claimed she wasn't during the debate. But again and again, she wants to raise taxes. He wants to lower them. There are a whole series of cases like that. She did say to an audience in the secret tapes that were released on Friday that she wanted a Canadian-style government-run system, and he took her head on about that as compared to his approach, which was a lot more competition, a lot more decentralization, and Obamacare. So I think on the substance side, he did pretty well. There were occasions when it was 3-on-1. There were occasions where the two moderators couldn't help themselves and jumped in, invariably on behalf of Hillary and invariably designed to put Trump on defense or to limit him. But I thought he did a pretty good job of responding head on and not allowing them to put him on defense. So that was a fascinating part of the debate. I think that in the short run, Karl Rove may have said it best when he said this morning that Trump got a ticket to another round. He didn't knock her out. He didn't fully revive his candidacy. He still got a long mountain to climb and 29 days to do it in. But he certainly was back in the game last night. I think in that context, I would hope that every Republican leader, so-called leader, would look seriously at what they're doing and saying right now. You know, this is not a choice between Donald Trump and the ideal Republican, or between Donald Trump and Mr. Perfection or Miss Perfection. This is a choice between Donald Trump and a Hillary Clinton who we know is a serial liar, destroyed 33,000 emails, used her office to enrich the Clinton family and enrich the Clinton Foundation, has said in private secret speeches to business audiences that of course you have to have two views, one in private and one in public. Has said in the Wall Street speeches where they paid her, we now know, all of this, by the way, came out Friday and was cheerfully ignored by the media, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So we have the secret Hillary, and I hope the Trump campaign will spend at least a week exposing the secret Hillary. What did she say in these secret meetings? What is coming out in all of these various leaks? And it's interesting because the Democrats are saying, well, it's unfair and you can't comment. Well, there's an easy solution. Release all the speeches. I mean, the speeches apparently exist because the leaks are based on Clinton's staff looking at the speech, writing down all of the specifics that they thought would really trouble us. The one that I think is the most devastating is to the Brazilian bank. There's a bank in Brazil which had paid Bill Clinton $400,000 for a speech. And by the way, notice nobody ever asked about, well, should we also see Bill Clinton's speeches since his price doubled, according to Peter Schweitzer, who wrote Clinton Cash. His price for a speech doubled after his wife became Secretary of State. But nobody ever asked to say, let's see what Bill Clinton was saying in secret in all these paid speeches. So anyway, this Brazilian bank, and remember, Brazil's a country in the middle of a gigantic corruption scandal in which the government-run, I call it the Bernie Sanders government-run petroleum company, had $40 billion, not million, $40 billion that was floating around in a slush fund. The current president was impeached and is out of office. The immediate past president has been indicted for criminal violation, which will get me to Trump in a minute and his independent prosecutor comment. So in a country where corruption is rampant, in a secret speech, Hillary Clinton announces, this is her word, by the way, excuse me, she announces that her dream, think about that word, her dream is of open borders in the Americas. Now, open borders in the Americas would mean 600 million people would be able to come into the U.S. Just saw an article today about El Salvador, which has the highest homicide rate in the world, where MS-21 is or MS-13 rather, is a gang of enormous power and great violence. They could all come in crossing the border, open borders. I don't think sometimes that Hillary thinks about what words mean, because they're just words. You change them with other words. But we have her on record in a secret speech in Brazil saying she favors open borders for the Western Hemisphere, which would literally give 600 million people the right to come across the United States border without any vetting at all, without a visa. Now, I suspect if the Trump campaign in a disciplined way would simply go through all of the secret Hillary stuff, starting with that one as an example, or her commitment to Canadian government-run health care, another secret speech, or a number of other things. It's amazing the list that you can put together. I think that if the country voted on, yes, we'd like to have 600 million people able to enter the U.S. without any vetting, or no, we actually think we ought to control the southern border, my guess is that's a 70-30, 75-25 issue, and that she would lose in a landslide. So there's a lot to look at in what was coming out. My friend Barry Castleman, who writes a newsletter on a regular basis in Minnesota, wrote one today that I commend to all of you, because I think he got at part of what's going on right now. He described a news media coup d'etat. A coup d'etat is an effort to overthrow the government or overthrow the existing system by non-legal means or extra-legal means. And his argument is that if you look at the one-sidedness of the way in which they attacked Trump while protecting Clinton, that clearly what you have underway is a deliberate news media-wide effort to destroy Donald Trump. And I think there's a practical reason. And that practical reason is that Donald Trump represents genuine, deep change. Remember, the brother of the head of CBS News is, in fact, the deputy national security advisor for Obama. There's one major reporter who gave $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. I mean, the connections between the various news media and the old order are enormous. They are Hillary Clinton. Not they like her. They are her. And, Donald Trump is a direct mortal threat. He's a threat in style. He's a threat in policies. He's a threat in aggressiveness. And that gets me to, I think, the most important single statement last night, when he said he would appoint a special counsel. The reason I think that's so important is it moves us from political language to accountability. And this is a point I'd like to make to every member of the House and Senate on the Republican side who are wringing their hands, walking in circles, trying to figure out what to do. Relax and slow down for a minute. If you can communicate to your voters that Hillary Clinton is totally unacceptable and why she's totally unacceptable, you don't have to run around and defend Donald Trump. That's Donald Trump's job. But you also don't have to abandon him because there is no alternative at a practical level. He is the nominee. And the choice is going to come down to two people, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And now we get to one of the key problems of modern republicanism, which is they use the language and then nothing happens. So let's take the IRS, which people generally agree broke the law. I mean, it's wide belief that the Internal Revenue Service broke the law. But of course, in the Obama administration, 8 straight years of corrupting the Justice Department, nothing's going to happen. But should the new administration ignore 8 years of breaking the law? Or should there be accountability? Look at the Veterans Administration, where you've had veterans killed by people who have had criminal violations. Where, for example, in Los Angeles, they deleted 3,000 names who were signed up to have medical exams or appointments with doctors. 3,000 names. Shouldn't there be accountability for this? Shouldn't somebody, in fact, go to jail? Because almost certainly some people died for not seeing the doctors because some bureaucrat illegally eliminated their name. You can go through department after department. Look at the FBI. The FBI behavior and Director Comey's behavior in the Clinton case is beyond imagination. Shouldn't there be a serious independent audit of what decisions were made, how were they made? And now that we're learning, for example, that they literally agreed to destroy computers. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that movies are made about. In the case of the Iranian deal, who agreed to send $1.9 billion in cash? Think about this, looking like a bad movie. $1.9 billion in cash to the Iranians. And by the way, did you notice today's headline? The Houthis, I may be pronouncing it wrong, H-O-U-T-H-I, the Houthis in Yemen, who are backed by the Iranians, funded by the Iranians, armed by the Iranians, fired 2 missiles at an American warship. So here you have the grotesque moment. The Obama administration, in a deal that Hillary Clinton totally supports, sends billions to Iran, while the Iranians are giving weapons to the Houthis, who are shooting at an American warship. Now, it's amazing we get nothing out of the Iranians. They have contempt for this administration. They think we're paying them royalties, tribute, if you will. And every step that this administration takes to be nice to them increases their contempt for the Americans. So, the notion that those of us who believe deleting 33,000 emails, deliberately bleach bidding, which I think is really weird, I mean, deliberately eliminating any possibility of looking at her computers, having 13 different devices while claiming she had one, violating all the security clearances that exist in the United States government. I mean, go down the list. Shouldn't somebody be accountable? The news media is never going to hold her accountable because she is them. This administration, of course, is so corrupted that nothing will happen. And the collapse of Comey is just proof of that. And Comey says, for example, well, she turned over the work emails. That's below. How does he know? How does anyone know what was in the 33,000 emails she deleted? And yet there's this pretense that, after all, we all have to be reasonable. No. This country is in crisis. We're in crisis at many levels. We have an American shot every 2 hours in Chicago. That's a crisis. We've had riots in Baltimore, Milwaukee, Charlotte, Ferguson. That's a crisis. We have a decaying economy with the weakest recovery since the Great Depression. That's a crisis. We have almost $20 trillion in national debt. That's a crisis. We have bureaucracies that just don't function. We have veterans who are being failed by the Veterans Administration, causing some of them to die. One of the recent stories is that 1 out of every 3 calls to the suicide helpline at the Veterans Administration, 1 out of 3 rolls over to voicemail. Can you imagine an organization so badly run, so incompetent, that the line set up so that somebody at 2 in the morning who feels helpless and might commit suicide, when they call that line, they get voicemail? This is how bad it is. And I was proud of Trump last night. I think he has crossed a historic watershed. I think we have to have a debate. Are we willing to be a corrupt system with a corrupt government, with the rule of law gone? Or are we going to insist once again on returning to accountability and insisting that the United States has to have the rule of law? My only advice to Republican leaders is simple. In the end, you either help defeat Hillary Clinton or you help elect Hillary Clinton. If she gets elected, she will be a nightmare. This will be the most corrupt and dishonest administration in American history, and you will find her even harder to work with than Obama, because she will simply smother you. I think to sit on your hands, to find some pretense because Donald Trump isn't pure enough, so you're willing to have Hillary Clinton get elected, is an enormous disservice to the future of the country and the future of our children and grandchildren. I don't in any way defend what he said in that tape. I think it was stupid. I think it was disgusting. It's not the Donald Trump I've known personally now for many years, but nonetheless, I'm prepared to say that that was not acceptable. On the other hand, when I look at that and then I look at 33,000 deleted emails, I look at the people dying at Benghazi because there was no help. And by the way, there were 600 different requests over the course of time by various people in Libya asking for security. Not all that one night, but over a period of months, they've been begging for more security help. So you just look around at the choice. I thought it was a very revealing and very important debate. I think if Trump improves as much between this debate and the next one as he did between the first debate and this one, Hillary is going to have a very hard time getting through the third debate. And I think the key to the Trump campaign now is to focus on the big picture, focus on the secret Hillary who gave all the secret speeches. Make sure, despite the news media, that every American is aware of her ideas, of the things she would do, of how bad they would be. If they'll focus on drawing the distinction sharply, this is going to be a very exciting and very, very important election, and I'll have more things to report on it in the future.